So, hey Jessica, how you doing?
Hey Gareth, I'm great.
It has been, I know I've been saying this a lot, but this has been so busy here. Ashcroft is you think Vegas is the town that never sleeps? Come to Ashcroft. What did you do over the weekend?
I was at a conference all weekend, so I was learning about healthy eating and some motivational things. I'm a wellness coach for Ideal Protein, so it was the annual Ideal Protein conference. So I was in Vancouver learning all weekend long in the pouring rain.
What kind of stuff does Ideal Protein do for you?
So we are a weight loss protocol.
Oh, okay.
So we were a lot of kind of some new things and new exciting things happening with the company, and then a lot of motivational and how to be a better coach training. So it was exciting. It was a good weekend.
Are there any little highlights that stood out to you, or?
Not off the top of my head, no. I'm still a little tired from last night.
Oh,
I haven't had a chance to process the weekend, let alone the entire week. I mean, I left Friday afternoon and without processing what had already happened for the week, and then off we go to the conference. So, what about you?
It was my nephew's 5th birthday a little while ago, but we had his birthday party on Saturday, so we went bowling. We went down to the coast to Abbotsford, went bowling. That was fun. I lost.
To a 5-year-old?
Oh yes.
Did you use the bouncy thingies on the
bumpers?
things?
The bumpers were up.
Yeah.
I just kept hitting, it was 5 pins, so you'd hit one pin, it would go away, and then I kept hitting the same pin that wasn't there.
Oh yes.
Right, so.
You have great aim, but only in one spot.
Yeah. I never learned the move over portion of bowling. So I did that on Saturday, and then I filmed a commercial for my aunt and uncle who run a sewing store. So if you need any sewing supplies, go to Castle Sewing on the border of Surrey and Langley. They have everything you need, and we made a commercial for them on Sunday involving their cat named Velcro.
You were saying that, and why was the cat involved?
Well, my aunt and uncle like the thought process is everybody likes a cat video, right? So the cat does or attempts to do silly things. So in the commercial, the cat runs a sewing machine and creates a piece.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Did you have to find a professional cat to do that, or did Velcro actually?
Velcro was a stubborn actor, I will say. I think that ultimately it'll turn out all right. But yeah, that Velcro, whew. He wasn't like scratching anyone, but he just wasn't having any of it. He was wanting to leave the room quite often, which worked for one shot. We needed that, and that one was the best one. So that was a lot of fun. So thanks for the opportunity to let me come down and shoot that commercial with you guys. So our weekend here wasn't very busy, but last week I feel like I haven't been able to put out as much stuff as we normally do because we've been filming these larger events. So and the morning shows. So what's been going on is we have morning shows going on. They start at 7 in the morning, so 7, 8, and 9. But we have to be here. I get here at 6:30. Dana gets here at 6, quarter after 6. And so we put these morning shows on, and then these events are happening at 7 o'clock at night. So we sort of have to take the middle of the day off, kind of. So it's not so much jiving with how much normal material we want to put out. So anyways, last week we had 3 nighttime things that we filmed. One of them being the Cache Creek Council meeting, which had a meeting of the whole, which that added an extra hour to the normal council meeting. Then on Wednesday we had a all candidates forum, which although the election is done now, we will still talk about how the forum went. And Interior Health had a meeting to discuss our local healthcare situation and our hospital. So we filmed all 3 of those events. All of those can be actually seen now on our YouTube channel. So I'll put links in the description of this video. And so check those out. Especially the Interior Health one, I think, is probably the most
relevant
urgent.
now.
Yeah. So So we'll go through all those events sort of one by one, starting with the Cache Creek council meeting. I love filming these things. It wasn't like before I started doing this job, I never really went.
Mm-hmm.
I did run for council once, but going to the meetings was never a thing that I did. Now that it's part of my job, it's very interesting to see what decisions are made, how decisions are made, how the group comes together or not comes together, which in some cases happens. But there's a couple of highlights or things that I wanted to talk about. One of them being, number one highlight for me was several of the council members went to a thing called UBCM, which was a meeting of all councils down in Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
So a bunch of people from Ashcroft went, a bunch of people from Cache Creek went. I will note, I don't think Tallarico went, which is the mayor of Cache Creek. Mm-hmm. I think, from what I understand, everybody else did go, but Mayor Tallarico did not. But in the meeting last week, Sue Peters, one of our council members in Cache Creek, brought up that she felt that she was overpaid in her per diems and honorariums. So when someone goes down to an event, if they're losing wages for a job, they get an honorarium. So they're still getting paid for the missing days that they would have been paid for anyway. And they get a per diem. So they're not having to go down and spend their own money on food, gas, that kind of thing. So Sue mentioned that the event had food provided. Mm-hmm. So instead of spending her per diem on other things or extra food, she ultimately gave the money back. She maybe used $100 of $700 that she was given, and she gave the money back. Now in the film industry, which is where I used to work, depending on the job that you have, you get a per diem. So every week you get a little envelope of cash, and it's for your food if you are working out of zone. Mm-hmm. That's just money in your pocket. I had never thought, because we get fed on set as well, I never thought to hand it back to the movie. So I just gotta say, kudos to Sue for doing that. I think that's in a time where the council, especially in Cache Creek, sounds like they're trying to be financially responsible. Mm-hmm. To give that money back was a big step forward. Mm-hmm. So that was number one. Good job, Sue. Number two, Annette Pittman, talking about fiscal and financial responsibility. Annette Pittman seems to be holding Cache Creek Council to a very high standard when it comes to what we're spending our money on, so the why and the how. Mm-hmm. There's lots of things that the Cache Creek Council is choosing to. Now we don't know what the budget looks like. Like as a village, we don't know what the budget looks like yet. We are coming into I believe in November they're going to be having a budgetary meeting, but it sounds like there's certain things that they're over on the budget and certain things that they're not. So Annette, maybe even to her own detriment, is constantly going after how much we're spending and why we're spending it. It's almost sad that now, this is just my own personal opinion, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but you can almost, when another item of finance comes up in these meetings and Annette goes to say something, you can almost feel the room get tense. Or, it's palpable. Very interesting. So now, having filmed these things over a few months, the things that she was talking about a few months ago are now kind of making sense. So it's interesting to see everybody in the room kind of go, oh, she's talking again, but at the same time, it comes around and she's almost vindicated. Mm-hmm.
She was right.
Right? So it's interesting, to say the least. So that's another highlight of what's been going on. Annette, as far as I'm concerned, can keep it up. Mm-hmm. Ask as many questions. What they used to say in school, there's no stupid questions. So it all comes down to clarification, I think.
Absolutely.
And lastly, what do we got? Yes. So talking about the budget meeting, there has been lots of talks about the pool in Cache Creek being shut down, and a large outcry from the public to keep the pool open. And the council has responded by saying, we'll bring it up at the budget meeting, and yet hasn't told us when that budget meeting is going to happen yet. At this last meeting, they have discussed having a meeting of their own to really have a plan to bring to the village, which is great. And the budget meeting that they wanted to have at the end of October has now been pushed into sometime into early November. We still don't know what that date is, but
Keep you posted.
we'll keep you posted.
Yeah.
The only thing I really have a question about when it comes to this particular council, and you might be able to shed some light on this because of your involvement in councils in the past and your father's involvement, is they're all set up into, so there's 4 council members and a mayor. Between the 5 of them, they're all separated into different committees. You would think that each committee would have regular meetings to discuss the topics that those committees were formed for. Having filmed these now for the last 4 or 5 months, every time I go and sit there and they bring up these committees, they'll say, okay, let's talk about X committee. And there'll be no meeting, nothing to report. What about the this meeting? No meeting, nothing to report. What about this? And it seems to be around the board, there's the odd time that they have had a meeting and there's something to say, but 95% of the time so far, there's been no meetings, nothing to say. Is that normal?
It can be. I think that not every meeting happens monthly. Maybe it's a every 3-month meeting, and so it's not something that has to happen. Also, because they have 2 regular meetings a month, potentially just the way that those other committee meetings fall is it doesn't fall nicely on this council meeting, but it'll fall with the other one. Like it happens after the council meeting as opposed to before the first council meeting. And sometimes it's meetings that they aren't in control of. So if they all sit on other boards as a representative of Cache Creek or of Ashcroft, and so they don't have control of those meetings, and so sometimes those meetings aren't a monthly meeting, or again they happen after the actual council meeting. So you can't report on a TNRD meeting that happens 3 days before the council meeting. You'd report on it the following time, but you still have to go through each of those committees.
I see where
on every agenda.
I see where I was confused then, because my understanding was it was these 2 council members get together at somebody's house, like one of their own houses, and just talks about this topic. I didn't realize that it was a group of people that they then have to go and sit with. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then that makes more sense.
Yeah.
And see, clarification is good. That's really all I had to say about the council meetings. Keep it up, Cache Creek Council. Ashcroft, we haven't really been filming Ashcroft council meetings because
They just hadn't, the way that the schedule was hadn't, but there is a meeting next week, and I'm sure we'll be filming that. You'll have busy Monday night.
Yeah, that's
Because you got 2 council meetings.
got 2 meetings, and they actually changed the time from 7 to 6, so now it's 4:30 and 6. So we got less time to get from one to the other.
You'll be fine.
But so now moving on to our Wednesday night All Candidates Forum. So again, now that the election's done, how do you think that the All Candidates Forum helped or hindered or?
Well, I have to say it was pretty exciting to be able to actually be the hosting organization. The Han put it on, so that was exciting. And other than the fact that we were very excited to have lapel mics and everything was working when we set everything up in the afternoon, and we double checked everything before all the candidates got there, and then the candidates put on their microphones and nothing worked. But like a good organization, we actually had a backup plan. And I have to say that I looked at the time. It was 8 minutes from the time we were supposed to start to the time we realized the mics weren't working properly, to switching the mics out, to starting. We did all of that in 8 minutes, which I thought was pretty impressive, that we could just carry on and continue with the forum.
When you watch the All Candidates Forum, I did cut that part out.
You missed the first 8 minutes
But
of us scrambling around on stage. But that's what happened.
It was great. Thank you, Jim Duncan.
Yes, thank you, Jim
for helping
Duncan.
us with that.
And Leith McLean managed the sound board for us backstage. So it was good.
Now you were the timekeeper. Have you seen the system that you used implemented in other things, or did you just come up with that?
No, that's a pretty easy way to keep track of people's time. I know that there was one municipal election where it was a timekeeping and a timer went off. Which one is distracting. I think it's like the Jeopardy answers and you're hearing the countdown music and now you can't think of anything except for the fact that you're listening to this countdown music or listening for the buzzer. And so having just a yellow piece of paper for you've got 10 seconds left and then a red piece of paper for finish your sentence and stop is less distracting, but also there for the candidate so that they can kind of see it and they can talk but then be aware of that, and most of the candidates did stop talking when it was read. I felt very powerful with my pieces of paper that I could shut a politician up. It was great.
Where did we get our questions from?
So all of the questions were provided for us either via email before the event or right before the event. People had written them down and we kind of just collated them a little bit to give them kind of some sort of order, and everything came from the audience.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Were there any standout moments for you?
No, not really. I mean, I didn't really necessarily even get to hear it because I was watching my clock tick down for a minute. But I think that the audience, there was some kind of clapping for some questions or for some answers from the audience. And so there was, I think, quite a bit of engagement and some answers that the audience enjoyed hearing and were happy to hear. And there were a few not so clappy answers too, that there was some audible things from the audience. But I think in general I can't say that one candidate stood out above any of the others, but they all represented who they were and what their party stood for.
Yeah. I guess the one question that sort of stood out to me, and I learned afterwards, can you name all the indigenous, what was it, languages?
All the indigenous language represented in the writing. And what was interesting is that the person that gave us that question said that she really liked that question because it had been asked in Lillooet. So these candidates had already been given that question, and none of them still couldn't answer all of it, even though a week ago they were asked that same question. So John Kidder he could answer all but the one that was in Mission.
And then what was it, Michael? And then?
Brad Viss knew.
Yes, Brad Viss.
He's grown up in Mission, and he knew what the language was in Mission. So between the five of them, or the four of them, they did know all five, but only one of them actually knew most of them.
And so kudos to John Kidder for knowing more.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a fun event. Again, we hosted it. Thanks to Jim, thanks to Leith. Dana moderated the event.
She did, and she did a great job.
Yeah.
She said she wasn't nervous. It was the first time she wasn't really nervous about getting up on stage and moderating. So other than forgetting whose turn it was to go first and who had spoken and who hadn't, she did a great job.
Well, and for a first-time go-around.
With that specific type of event, yeah, I think it was good.
Very cool. So then we move into Thursday with our interior health meeting.
Yeah.
This went more polite than I was expecting.
Me too, actually. I was worried that there would be some ruckus because I had heard kind of grumblings, but it was definitely calmer than I was expecting. And I am glad that initially Interior Health was only going to take written questions and kind of group them together, because really it makes no sense to answer the same question 5 times and waste 45 minutes instead of answering it in 5 questions or in five minutes. So that was great, but there was a very large rumbling in the crowd of people that actually wanted to get up and talk. And so they did amend the way that they were doing things and took questions that had been written, and then also gave the audience an opportunity to speak, which I think a lot of people did want to just know that they were actually heard. It's one thing to write something down, but to actually verbalize your feelings, it was good.
Do you feel that the information that Interior Health provided was new, or was it something that we wanted to hear? Not necessarily for us, but just in your feeling from the room.
Mm-hmm.
I got the feeling that it wasn't what we were expecting them to say. my understanding is this is information that is 13 years old, that is still trying to evolve into something.
I think the audience definitely proved that the slides weren't necessarily accurate. And so, there was a lot of, it looks like we have lots on paper, but do you actually realize that we don't? We don't have someone coming in every week for physiotherapy, even though that you're saying that we do. We don't have someone that is coming in to do this, even though you say we do. They're actually only available 1 day a week or 1 day a month, not all 4 days of every week. I think that a lot of people in the room are very focused on one issue within interior health and they don't care about the rest of it, really. Like, that's all they want to know about. Which is sad, because really, if you look at the whole scheme of our healthcare system and our health site, we do have a lot to offer. And I think it was really great to be able to actually hear all of the things that we do have that maybe we didn't realize that we did. And yes, maybe we only have it one week out of the 4, even though it says we're supposed to have it out of the 4. And interior health seemed very receptive to the fact that, we didn't realize that there was some shortfallings within what we thought was being offered. And so they are looking into that. They say they are anyway. And so I really wish that people would have come more with their ears open to hear what interior health had to say, as opposed to, I'm just going to focus on this one issue because this is the one that's the most important to me. And unless they talk about that, I'm not going to hear them, and I'm going to be angry about the fact that they're not talking about this. And they did answer the question. It wasn't the answer that the room wanted, but they did answer the emergency room question, and it was, we're not doing anything different right now.
I actually thought that the telehealth was an interesting concept.
And that's the thing, is there is this whole array of services that is being worked on to make it so that it is a community health site where more services that we actually can have are being offered. So telehealth is an amazing one that actually has been there for a very long time, and there is a lot more that can be done with it. There's a lot more different types of doctors that can be on the other end of the telehealth services. Right now there's a few, but that's one of those ways that we can alleviate a little bit more of the rest of the system, that then opens up spaces for people to see doctors without having to go to the emergency room because they have a sore throat.
Right. There it is again. Ever since I had my chemo, I have these sort of brain lapses. I have something I want to say, and then it just flitters out of my head. I had this problem last night during the live stream of the election a few times.
Yeah.
And it's right there on the tip of your tongue, and it just disappears. Yes, the crowd. Mm-hmm. So at the All Candidates Forum, we had about 75 people.
Yeah, it was a good turnout.
And at the Interior Health meeting, we had upwards of 170.
Yeah, they had to get more chairs out.
So that was a very good turnout, I gotta say, for a small town.
And it was great to see every single nurse, I think, that wasn't working at the time, that is employed within the hospital, was there to support, and they were front and center. And so it was nice to see that they came out, because they feel like our health site is important and is important to the community.
So good. I mean, thank you, Interior Health, for coming out and doing that. Thank you for everybody for showing up. And moving on. So then, now that we've sort of caught up, last night was the election night.
It was.
And, oh man, we did a 2-hour live stream with Barbara Roden of the Ashcroft-Cache Creek Journal. We had a visitation with Vivian McLean, a local teen. Her brother Leith ran our switcher board, and Jessica and I were just going through the numbers. It was a lot of fun.
It was.
I remember saying to my wife on the way home, that was fun. I really enjoyed it.
I wish there was an election every week, so we could do this every week.
The overall numbers were different from the predictions that were going on all day yesterday.
Yeah.
The predictions were that the Conservatives were going to take not the majority,
take the minority.
But take the minority government spot, which didn't happen. The final numbers were the Liberals with 157 seats, the Conservatives with 121, the Quebecois with 32, the New Democrats with 24, the Greens with 3, and there's one independent, which is from BC. So looking at what happened with the last election, big shifts of loss of seats for the Democrats and the Liberals. The Conservatives gained, the Bloc gained, and the Greens
gained one.
Gained.
Yeah.
From what I see, the Greens only had one.
So from the previous election, Elizabeth May was the only one elected, but there was a by-election just a little while ago where the Greens picked up a seat. And so there was a question as to whether he would be able to hold his seat in a full election as opposed to a by-election. So they have 3 seats now.
So so that means that the Liberal government is looking at doing the minority government situation, probably with the New Democrats and the Green Party.
Potentially, yeah.
So I saw a picture today of the 3 of them
I saw that
standing
too.
tall.
That would be great. I think it'll be an interesting week to see how that evolves and what actually happens. And we aren't done with the election yet. I mean, the results are in, but because there's not a majority, we don't have a prime minister yet.
Well, but not everybody. What I've seen a lot of is, but the Conservatives have the majority vote.
Yes.
When you flip it to American stuff, Trump didn't have the majority vote.
Yeah.
And I'm sure at that time everybody voting Conservative was still happy that he got in.
Yeah.
Or Republican, sorry.
Yeah.
And that Hillary, despite the fact that she had the popular vote, didn't. So this is kind of the reverse of that. You can't always flip-flop whenever that number doesn't suit your purposes.
That's why we have rules.
Right?
And we have to follow them.
I mean, we just have to, if you're conservative, you just got to pick up your socks and do better next time.
Yeah.
Or
work with the government. I mean, the nice thing about a minority government is that there isn't any one party that can outvote you.
Right.
So it is a government of potential cooperation, which I think is the best way to get things done.
Totally. So that's all really
Do we want to talk about our actual specific riding? So we have switched from a Liberal to Conservative government.
Yep.
MP locally. And as Barbara said last night in our thing, is we've actually been mostly Conservative with our riding, and we're one of those ridings that gets mishmashed every couple of elections. So our current riding as it is, this is only its 2nd term, and previously we were Conservative for a very long time. So we are back to being blue on the map.
So we went from Jati Sidhu of the Liberal Party to Brad Viss of the Conservative Party. Congratulations, Brad, for getting in. Our local boy John Kidder didn't quite make it.
He had 1 vote shy of 5,000 votes. Which was good. It was
now maybe this is just because of the people that I have on my Facebook, but I saw more get out there and put your name out and rallies and stuff for Greens across the board than I did for any other party.
Yeah.
Maybe that's because climate change is such a hot topic.
Yeah.
But they did a lot. It was a valiant fight for John.
And I have to say, during the forum, Brad Viss did stand up at the very end and give his list of things that he was promising us. So I hope that we can hold him accountable to that list in the next 4 years, or however long the minority government can hold its power.
Yeah. I don't know if I could handle another. It felt like a long time.
It was actually one of the shortest election periods in history.
Maybe because I was watching it so much.
Yeah.
Or I guess I felt
you were invested.
I was more involved.
Yeah.
But yeah, it felt like a long slog. Not slog. That's a bad word.
Never ending.
Anyway, so be sure to check out our morning shows.
Yeah.
We've been very consistent with doing those every weekday, so 7, 8, and 9 in the morning. We are looking to start setting up a focus group.
Yep.
We've been talking about that to watch some material that we have made. We want to get some feedback on how we can do things better. So if you're interested in that, let us know at manager@hubonlinenetwork.com, and we'll put your name in there for that. And that's all I got for now. We have a lot of videos in the works and lots of new exciting things happening. So stay tuned to the Hub Online Network, and we'll see you next time.